Hi, Henny, how are you? It's Teknikolour. Today I have a build that I actually based off of a restaurant that I visited while I was in Stockholm. So let's check it out. So about a week or so ago, I had just come home from my vacation in Stockholm and Copenhagen, and I had the best time, but I had so much build inspiration, and then I didn't have enough time to build. So basically I was like, okay, so we're gonna build when we get home, and then we're gonna post all these speed builds. And they started taking a little bit longer than I expected, and I was a little jet lagged still. And actually, last week's video was a build that I had started before I even went on vacation. And now this build is something that I started brand new this week, because I think the other build is still going to take me a really long time. And this is a build that I had wanted to do as I was eating dinner in Stockholm. We ended up visiting this restaurant, Tradition, for dinner, and it was so good. I really, really enjoyed it. I ended up getting the Swedish meatballs because how could I not? And this place, the vibes of this restaurant were just immaculate. I felt like it was very cozy. It also felt very Scandinavian to me, and it was very comfortable. And I just knew as I was eating that I wanted to build. Like, I think I even said to my boyfriend and his parents multiple times, I feel like when I go home, I'm going to have to build this. And so I did. And it's by no means an exact replica of the actual restaurant. I revised it a little bit, so I don't know. I also took a little bit of inspiration from the building that's actually right next door to this one. And I do end up moving this lot to a different one because I decided that the space wasn't big enough. I realized that I didn't have enough room for the bathrooms or the kitchen, which for a restaurant, I think is kind of important. I ended up adding those things in a little bit later after we moved the lot, but I really wanted to build in this area because it's very close to that statue. You know, the Little Mermaid statue in Copenhagen? This one's close to it. And I know Copenhagen, you know, not Stockholm. But it doesn't matter. They're all kind of connected in The Sims. It's not the real thing. It is Nordhavn, which actually is a place that you can go to, because when we were on this vacation, I don't remember exactly what it was, but we ended up going on the subway, and I looked up, and on this same subway line, there was a stop called Nordhavn. So like, I don't think it's based off of that, but it was very interesting to find an actual stop of a place that is in The Sims. So that was kind of exciting. But anyway, with this build, I decided that I wanted to have a restaurant on the main floor, which would basically mimic the actual restaurant that I had gone to. But I wanted there to be something else in this building. And I didn't want it to be too big because I needed to make sure I could get the build done in time. Like, honestly, that's kind of where I was at. And I decided that I was going to put an apartment above. And I think I was sort of taking inspiration from some of the Airbnbs that we had used while we were away. And I ended up sort of just thinking it doesn't need to be like a rental home. So let's just make it like somebody's actual apartment. Which makes way more sense, because if you were to play in this using businesses and hobbies, you would probably have the restaurant act as a restaurant, and then you would have this be your home. So it would be like a residential small business lot, but you'd still be able to run the restaurant here. And I think that this came out so much better than I expected, because I really didn't know what to do with the actual apartment, because it was going to be very small. I was originally considering doing a second floor for the apartment. So like the building would be 3 floors, but I decided it just didn't make sense visually. So I stuck with 2 floors for the whole building, and it's not a very big apartment, but I was able to fit in a bedroom. So it's kind of like a studio because it's got the kitchen, it's got the dining room, there's a separate bathroom, and the bedroom is kind of just off on its own. There's like dividers, and I gotta tell you, the dividers that came in businesses and hobbies, I use them all the time. I really, really, really like them. And I actually like a lot of the items from businesses and hobbies, but I also felt like I didn't really get a lot of time to play with the pack and actually like build with it before I had to leave for my vacation. And this was the longest vacation that I have ever taken in my time as a content creator. Actually, it's probably the longest vacation that I've taken in my life. So my in-laws had basically said that they wanted to take us on a trip, and we had to come up with places that we would like to visit. And 2 of the places that we were all interested in were Copenhagen and Stockholm. So we ended up going there. We went to Stockholm first, which I should have been paying a little bit more attention when we were doing the actual planning of the trip, because for some reason I got it in my head that we were going to be visiting Copenhagen first, which is in Denmark, and then we would visit Stockholm, which is in Sweden, and we would spend a week in each place. So I said, I'm gonna be prepared and I'm gonna start learning the language. But I started to learn Danish instead of Swedish. They're all sort of similar, it seems. So I felt like if I know one, hopefully it'll help in the other. But it makes sense to start learning the language of the first place we're going to. But again, I really wasn't paying attention, so I ended up learning the language of the second place we were going to. And then I found out that the Danish people apparently pronounce things strangely, according to other people in Scandinavia. And that's coming from one of my Norwegian friends, our Swedish food tour guide. So I was like, oop. I've actually still been learning it. I think it's been really enjoyable. I'm just doing Duolingo, so it's not like a whole bunch that I'm learning. It's not like I'm going to classes or anything. And I did the same thing when we went to Czechia. So I was learning Czech when we visited Prague. And I actually kept that one up until maybe like a month before we ended up going on this trip. And now I've been sticking with Danish, but I don't know. Maybe I'll switch to a new language. Maybe I'll go back to Czech. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. But I've been learning on Duolingo, and it's very, very fun. Actually, I sort of feel like Czech is a harder language to learn than Danish has been. I also have Norwegian blood, so it might be interesting to learn Norwegian. I don't know. This is only just occurring to me as I'm talking to you about it. Anyway, we went for a week each. 1 week in Stockholm, 1 week in Copenhagen. And as you may know, I'm a big fan of The Little Mermaid, and the Little Mermaid statue, I think, was like the last day that we had seen anything in Denmark. This was our last day of the trip, and I wore my Little Mermaid hoodie that I ended up getting for Christmas from my parents, and I was just like so excited for it. And it's so funny because so many people I have heard are like, skip it. So many people are like, you don't need to see the Little Mermaid statue. It's really kind of out of the way. There's not much that's near it. So we had kind of planned our day around knowing that. So we were doing some things that were like sort of close to it so that it wouldn't be as much of a like trek to get out there. But everyone knew like I had to see this. Like I love the Little Mermaid, and I was just stunned when I finally saw the statue. So many people have said that the statue is so much smaller than you would expect. So it's like really not worth it. And there were a bunch of people there taking photos, but I didn't really have a hard time like waiting to have my photo taken, or I don't know, just being able to pose with the statue. It was a really good time that we went, it seemed. But I do know that there have been times where like people are like, there's tons of tourists over there. And I I was just kind of shocked when I actually saw the statue, because so many people have said it's so small, and it was a lot bigger than I was expecting. It's smaller than you would think of like a typical like historic statue in some of these countries, but it was much bigger than I was expecting, because I guess so many people have brought my hopes down. Because they're like, you could skip this, you don't have to do it. Like it's a very small statue. So I was kind of impressed by it. So I don't know what that means. I guess if you're a huge Little Mermaid fan and this is something that you really want to see, definitely go see it. But I don't know. It was just like a huge moment for me. And I'm just so grateful that I got to go and see it. But this trip was actually really fun. There were so many great places that we had seen in both countries. And I'm probably going to be making a couple of more builds that are inspired by them. There was actually this one building that I ended up walking by, and it's like an embassy. I thought it looked really interesting, and it's literally like an embassy. So I may or may not have started building that already. That's one of the builds that's like a lot bigger than I had expected it to be. So kind of at a standstill with that one. It might be next week's video, but it also might be a walkthrough tour, because I've been building for a while. But I was just getting so much inspiration from this trip that, oh my god, I feel like there's so many Nordhaven builds that I'm going to be uploading more recently. Which, I don't know, it's very interesting to me, because I feel like Lovestruck had released, and I didn't really, actually, let's be honest, I feel like of all of the packs that have released more recently, I feel like I've already built the most for Nordhaven. I'm not actually sure what other builds I've done in the other more recent worlds. I feel like I build so much lately in Copperdale, and Brindleton Bay I love. Like, how could I not? It's my favorite world in The Sims. And I also build in San Sequoia a lot, which I feel like is kind of interesting. It's kind of a hot take, because I feel like there's so many people who are like, San Sequoia is like not a good world, but I really like it. I really like San Sequoia. A lot of people say that it's too similar to some of the base game worlds. I don't know. I like it. I think it's cute. It's actually where I built my Legacy Founders home in my Legacy Challenge, which, by the way, I should mention, I am back to streaming on Twitch, not just posting YouTube videos. Again, I did take 2 weeks off for my vacation, but I'm back, and it's been very exciting. I changed my schedule. So if you're new to this channel and you've never heard me talk about my Twitch streams before, I used to stream 5 days a week for 4 hours each. And that might seem like a lot, but I actually used to stream every single day. And then it took me a while to like remove one day, and then I removed a second day. But this is my biggest change yet. So now I'm only streaming on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And so far, it's been really fun. I've actually been playing with a friend of mine on Saturday streams, Split Fiction, which we're actually going to be continuing this Saturday. And it's been so much fun. Like, I have found myself laughing and enjoying this game so much more than I expected, because I'm not like really great at co-op games. I don't know if you've noticed that. I played some co-op games with my boyfriend, and I feel like it never goes that well. But this one has been so much fun. It's actually been like, I've found myself like really laughing and just like screaming and just having like the best time. But we're also shortening our amount of sim streams, unfortunately. So instead of doing my legacy challenge 2 days a week, we are now streaming on Thursdays only. So Thursday mornings I go live, and again, it's like 6 hours long, this new change. So instead of 4 hours, we're doing 6 hours. And I've been playing with my legacy family again, and it's been so nice to get back to playing with my legacy family. I created my own legacy challenge, and it's called the Around the World's Legacy Challenge. So each generation is basically based on a different pack. And right now we're focused on island living. So we're living in Sulani, and our husband is a mermaid. It's just like super cute. And I'm having a really good time living in Sulani and playing with the island living pack, because you might not know this, The Sims 4 is my first Sims game. And I got really into it. And the first gameplay thing that I ever did in The Sims 4 was I again wrote my own challenge. This was the first challenge I ever did. I did the Little Mermaid challenge, and it was basically like you play through like Disney The Little Mermaid, and you play through like Ariel's life. So you start off with King Triton and Queen Athena, and then you have all of her older sisters, and then her. It's a lot. And it didn't end until she and Eric had married, given birth to their daughter Melody, and Melody aged up into a mermaid, which is a teenager. And it was really fun. And it took place in Sulani, because how could it not? And this is my first time ever going back or building, I think, really, for like fun and not like a shell challenge or something. Just something that like I've created on my own in Sulani. So it's been really fun to get back into it. Again, I'm mentioning this because it's kind of related to, you know, like Little Mermaid statue, like Copenhagen. It's all connected, in case you're like, what is this tangent? But again, this particular build is based off of a restaurant that I went to in Stockholm, and this was called Tradition. And I actually didn't put into this build the one thing that really made me want to build it in The Sims. And you're like, why? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But do you know the curtains that came from the Desert Luxe kit? I use those curtains a lot, and they were similar to curtains that they had used in this restaurant. So it might seem odd to take them out and not put them in here, because there's really no window coverings in the restaurant part of this build. But I don't know. I just felt like if I put them in, it would have restricted actual gameplay, or it would have made things a little awkward, because they weren't actually on the windows. They were actually on like dividing areas within the restaurant. And again, the restaurant wasn't that big, but it felt very smart that they were using these curtains to kind of designate different spaces within the restaurant. And something that I thought was really cool were there were these like booth sort of seating, but like with the tables, kind of like how I have built here. And they were lining all of the windows. And I actually sat on one of like the booth seats. So my back was to the window. So I didn't actually get to see much of like the view outside the restaurant, which is interesting because my boyfriend didn't really have much memory of the actual restaurant. And I was like, doesn't it look exactly like it? And he's like, I don't really remember, because his back was to most of it. But while we were eating, I got to see so much of the restaurant. And I didn't even know until I was looking online that they had outdoor seating too. It was too cold for us to do outdoor seating, so it might not have even been open. But that's why there's like this like gated backyard space, and that goes for the restaurant as extra seating. And I don't know, I just felt like building this, it just all sort of was really interesting to build something that I've been in before and I was able to know a little bit about. That might seem weird. We found out while we were in Stockholm that there's apparently this thing where people who don't necessarily have either like a reservation, like you just show up, they will usually seat you at this like kind of community table. And that's like the bar area that I have in like the center of the restaurant. And that's kind of how it looked in the actual restaurant tradition. And it was actually really interesting because when we got there for our reservation, I think our reservation was a little bit earlier. So there wasn't that many people that were actually in the restaurant when we got there. And then it filled up really quickly, like really quickly. So I don't even think we had gotten our meals yet. And the restaurant was like basically packed. And that community table had filled up with so many people who hadn't, I guess, had reservations, but had showed up to eat. And it was just very interesting that it became this thing that was more not centered around like actual tables, which is how I feel it is in America. Like we have like booth seating, we have like tables, like, and you might get sat wherever. It was more like everyone just got sat at this community table if they didn't have a reservation. And it just, I don't know. It's very interesting as an American because I feel like I don't really like going out to eat that much. Like going out to eat can be fun, but it's not like my boyfriend and I, like we go out to eat or even we get takeout that often. So we normally like cook ourselves. So it's very interesting, like the cultural differences, because it just felt like this was much more, I don't know, extroverted, and I'm not very extroverted. It felt like very tight-knit. It almost felt like a Thanksgiving table sort of thing. And I feel like they would have sat maybe like 2 or 3 families, like reserved parties at that table, but it was the opposite. Does that make sense? It was very interesting. I also have not play tested this. I probably should have led with that. I didn't play test this at all, but I am intending on bringing this into my legacy challenge. I'm probably going to place this and I might add the curtains, who knows, but I really want to dine here. I want my Sims to come here on a date or something, which is also why I added a fridge and a dishwasher and an oven range, because I don't actually know if you need those for the restaurant to function, because I've only built a couple of restaurants and I usually don't include them because I think you just need like the chef's station, which I did include, but I wanted to include these other things, including a bar, because if I'm throwing like a birthday party, a lot of times if I didn't bring the cake, there's no like birthday cake. I think you might be able to order a cake at the restaurant and then like mark that as the birthday cake, but sometime it takes a while, you know, for your items to come using Dine Out, but whatever. So in case you need to cook it yourself, which I have done before, I have made a cake myself and like literally just like placed down counters and a fridge and all that on different lots just so I could have my sim have a birthday party. And this one's kind of all set up for it in case that is something that you run into. I also really, really like that there is a bar and it's sort of like tucked away. It's in the kitchen area, and there's also like the place that kind of like acts visually as the bar, because that's literally what it looked like in the restaurant. But I added in this actual like Sims bar in like that little corner that's like kind of like near the fridge, and it, I don't know, it just, I feel like it makes it have a little bit more character, because obviously that was the kitchen. I didn't go back there, so I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't even need to use the restroom when I was in this restaurant, so I have no idea what the restrooms even looked like. There's actually like a staircase to go down next to where the restrooms are, in the actual restaurant, but I didn't know what was down there. So I didn't put them in. And the bathrooms are apparently like where they are in the actual restaurant in this build, because I found that out when I was looking up photos and reference photos so I could like try to build this. Also, if you like own a tradition restaurant or you've been there or whatever, and you also play The Sims and you see this, can you comment and let me know like what you think? Because I feel like this is not something that I've really done before. I feel like this is not like typical for me. And I don't know, it was kind of exciting to build something that I've been to before. Also, it left such an impression on me that I honestly couldn't wait to get home and build it. Like I said it multiple times during the dinner. So yeah. Again, I should probably mention, if you would like to see more content like this, but live, I actually stream 3 days a week now over on Twitch, Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Right now we're playing Spirit of the North 2, which is beautiful and has been so interesting so far. We're playing with my Legacy family on Thursday mornings, and on Saturdays right now we're doing Split Fiction. So if any of that seems up your alley, you might want to check it out. I'll put the link down below. Anyway, we are nearing the end of the speed build right now, so why don't we pop into the game and I can show you around a little bit, give you a nice tour. So here the build is in the game, and I just think it looks so good. You have this front area. This is the entrance to get into the restaurant, and then over here is the entrance to get into the apartment upstairs. There's also the side door over here, and actually a gate to get into the outdoor seating. And then we have the back of the building, and then we have this side over here, and you could see into the restaurant, you could see into the apartment. And I just think it looks so cute. You come in through the front door of the restaurant, and there is this space to just sit and wait to be seated if there's a lot of people. And this is the actual dining room. So you have all of this space, which I'm hoping will work with dine out. I'm expecting like the bars not to really work, but you have the host station over here, you have the chef station, and you have this bar back here. And then of course there is these bathrooms in here. And then over here, there's actually just this one little window. And this was actually in the actual restaurant, and we have nothing like this in game. So this is actually this window from Horse Ranch with these like slats covering up the actual shutters, because I was like, I can't just have this like barn door in my build. So it was the best I could do. And then of course, here's the outdoor seating. To get into the apartment, you have these stairs right here, and you go up, and there is a bar right off of the stairs. There's the entrance into the bathroom, and then you can kind of see the whole apartment from here. There's the dining room, there's the kitchen over here, and then of course the living room. And these dividers from the new pack just sort of like give this airiness to the apartment, so it doesn't feel like super closed off, because there's windows on this side and there's windows here. Oh my god. I just realized I got rid of a window, but I didn't get rid of the curtain. So glad I caught that before I uploaded it to the gallery. But here, you just round this little corner over here and you get into the bedroom, and there is an office space over here and an access from the bedroom into the bathroom, so your sim doesn't have to go all the way around. And then we have a little outdoor grill. We've got some loungers, and we've got some chairs here. And of course, there's the door to get out into that balcony space. And then up here, we just got some light coming in. And that, my friends, is is basically the build. You can see the little mermaid statue back here. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos. But also, if you want to see live content, especially my sim streams, I stream Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays over on Twitch. You can check out my schedule down below. But we're doing the Sims on Thursday mornings, so check it out if you're interested. But I will catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.